There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna start now. Okay, it started recording already. All right. So anybody else wants to start, or should we just do the same thing as we did the last time? We just go over one, or
Yeah,
That works for me.
yeah. Okay. So this is core principle for the idea. So we know the idea is just the program that increase and help students with disability services. Like it's the to put all the services that students need. So for the first one, free appropriate public school or FAPE. So we have free education for students with disability. Parents do not pay for it, and service are designed specifically to meet students' need, like materials, settings, technology, and all that stuff.
You said we were talking about the appropriate education. I'm sorry, my kids are crying in the background. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that, it made me think of the one assignment that we had with the things not to say in the IEP meeting, and about how like this, oh my goodness, this is going to cost so much. Like it's not the parent's fault that the child, needs this, whatever. So the school needs to be able to find a way to make that work, which I like that they're protected by FAPE as well.
Yeah, I
So no
definitely
one's left
agree.
behind.
Because, some parents aren't able to provide just the basic needs, let alone expensive technology that they need for, special ed.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Anybody else wants to add anything to it? Okay, so for the least restrictive environment, or LRE, what I just noted was that the student must be educated in an educational setting, like the ones for students without disability, like they can just join the regular classrooms.
I I agree with it to a certain extent. I definitely feel like, kids with disabilities should be able to be in the classroom with the regular kids just so they can feel normal. Because I'm sure if they're in a disability class with students with a whole bunch of disabilities, they don't feel normal.
Yeah,
If that
That's
makes
it.
sense.
I agree with that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
As someone that works in the life skills classroom, I do see that it is very important for that specific group of children to go into gen ed classes. Not even if it's if the goal is just to be able to stay in a classroom setting, or it's more socialization. But there are some kiddos in that classroom that are grasping some of the concepts that they're learning in the class. But in my opinion, those that have a lot of disabilities are just there for more of a, can I do it? Can I socialize? Can I get that aspect? But also in the sense of like, if I had a student that required 30 minutes of resource time, I'm not going to stick them in a room for 2 hours when they're requiring 30 minutes, because that's not least restrictive for them. They don't need that amount of time, if that makes sense. I know that was also one of the IEP things not to say. You're not going to stick someone in a 2 hour class if they don't need ELA resource, and that doesn't make sense.
That's correct. And they do need to interact with others. I mean, that is important for them. I do remember one time having a student that he was having issues when we were doing lunch. And as long as we set them down with like the regular kids, he was fine and we had no issues. So we started doing that. Like they need that. Sometimes it is a target, because I'm gonna say it. Sometimes it is target because the regular students, they don't know how to treat them. you know, and sometimes anything that they say, that they might say to them, or that how they look at them or whatever, it can triggers that behavior, but sometimes it is needed.
But with that, I also think that more of the gen ed students need to be around kiddos with disabilities so that they can learn how to interact with them as well. So it goes both ways with including them in the classroom.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good point, Ashley, what you said, because there's a lot of kids who they don't know how to like talk to them. You don't want them to grow up and like have a certain idea about them just because they have a disability. So it's like a win-win for both of them. So they all benefit from it.
Yep.
Yeah, for that one, I just wrote honestly like I guess like some ways you can include them and stuff in the classroom. So I just wrote like there could be class modifications, supplemental aids or service, or even alternative instruction methods. But yeah, I agree with Ashley about how I feel like most kids aren't really like used to it. So if we include them more in the classroom, it could be more common for them.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is very appropriate for them, unless it is required that they are separated to learn for their own benefit. So should we move on? So individualized education, so like preparing the lessons and the program, the IEP. This is everything about IEP. And this program is reviewed and adopted annually for the students.
I think with an IEP, it's exactly what it is. It's individualized. So each student is going to have the plan for them. It's not going to be for everybody. That way you can meet them at their level and not exclude them because they're not able to do something. Which goes into like the zero reject, like students can't be excluded from public education, but they can have an individualized plan so that they can be included in learning.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. So on the book, it doesn't like specify too much about like the IEP. So do any of y'all know and like a lot about like kind of just explain it, like what it actually is, like the plan and everything? Do any of you know? I don't know. That's
I
why
don't really know. Yeah, no.
I mean, from my understanding with what I do, it's just like they take the students' needs. So like if they're not able to do certain math skills, they bring it down to like, let's say they're in sixth grade at a third grade level, they're gonna do third grade lessons and build up to sixth grade, or they're gonna give them that 30 minutes of resource time that they may need to work on additional stuff. It's just each child has a different path that they're gonna be taking, and it's in like their paperwork that the teachers have to follow that specific set of plans for them. You track their goals and progress monitor, just so they can make sure they're on target. And if they've mastered a certain goal, and it could be a simple goal or it could be a more advanced goal depending on the child, then they can move on to the next grade level goal or whatever it may be. Because I know with my kiddos right now, a lot of them are like they're junior high, but some of them are reading at like a fourth grade level or different things like that. So when you're teaching lessons, you have to make it to where it's each kid can kind of find what they do best or what grade level they're at, which makes it kind of difficult, but that's part of being a special education teacher is meeting those needs of those kiddos.
Yeah.
So I have a go
Sorry.
ahead. Okay. I have another question to piggyback off of that. So after an IEP meeting, are they placed into a special education program? Because how is a teacher teaching sixth grade math and third grade math?
I mean, for me, I don't have
Baseline.
it's okay. I don't have much experience. I did work a whole year with in a special ed classroom. And what we basically did, it was like all the kids have different goals. So all the activities that they were going to do was like meant to, you know, to reach to that goal. Like, okay, so I had one student that his goal was just to learn just life skills, like when he goes outside, like be able to recognize stores and stuff like that, and work. So we did that for him. So all the activities for him to do was based on that. And I had another student, his goal was for him to be able to recognize money, be able to do and deal with money. Like, okay, so I know how much is $5 bills. I know how to recognize that. So when we do those goals, that's when they are actually working on it. And of course, like when we collect data and stuff like that, and like actually all that stuff that we collect and we write down, it's just put in this big plan, and that's where they move on from.
Okay.
Another thing with that is, I'm sorry, I have to go like stand outside or something so I don't have to hear crying. That they have like the paraprofessionals that go in the room that are monitoring that child's progress, or co-teacher. So like different things they could do, like pulling out for resource to where you are working with a smaller group of kiddos that can, whatever their goals are. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that happens even for PE. Um, the students have a special program and special lesson for PE, and even though they go to regular PE with the rest of the class, because they cannot be excluded from that, they do receive that special part of PE. Alrighty.
Thank you for answering that. It helps a lot.
I hope it did. I mean, I'm not expert. Ashley seems to be more an expert than me.
I wouldn't say an expert. I've just been doing this for 4 years.
You see? Years counts better than one. Well, actually like 1.5, because last year I was like put in that, since I knew the kids and stuff, I was put in that class for so long, and I was like helping the new teacher, and okay, this is what we did, so yeah. All right, so should we move on to what was the non-discriminatory evaluation? So the student must be assessed with using instruments that do not discriminate race, ethnicity, or social group, whatever. And they must be evaluated fairly, and basically that their education do not depend on a test. That's what I
I
got
thought
from
one
it.
of the examples from the little modules that we did that I thought was really interesting about English language learners is the fact that you're teaching them English and they just learned what a table was. And then you're like, oh, hey, in math class, we're learning about tables. And like, what? Like, what? That doesn't make sense. So I like the fact that you can't really discriminate against that because they don't know. Like, there's English is so hard. Like, it really is. And that's confusing. So that's what I took from that is just, you can't base it on like that. I think the other example was American football, and you're testing on football and they're thinking soccer. And so just different stuff like that to take into account.
Yes.
I mean, for this one, I just wrote like the main thing was that the appropriate evaluation must determine the child's eligibility, not the actual scores.
Yes. All right. So due process. So what I noticed here is that they do have not only formal, but it has to be I mean, there's an informal and a formal procedure to follow in order to um like resolve where the students is going to be placed at, like the board meetings, and all that stuff. Like the whole school board has to meet, and it's not like, okay, so one parent can just come in and say, oh, my child needs special education, and they're just going to be placing a child, and in a special education classroom. They need to be procedures to follow, and then they will say, okay, so yeah, my student will go to success classroom, or no, my student should go to enable classroom, and stuff like that.
Isn't that when an IEP meeting come in place? Like you can't be placed in something without an IEP meeting, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say. Like there has to be, to base it off of eligibility, and if there's any kind of issues, you'd have to go back and meet as, have a meeting, meet the whole art team will have to be together. And no changes can be made until everyone is in agreement. So like you can't just say the IEP team meets with a parent is like, oh, hey, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Like you have to make a revision. You have to like have a whole meeting because you made one tiny change in like the number of service minutes you're gonna have. Or so that way I guess it's kind of covering your own butt, so you're not gonna like keep changing people's things without everyone being included. That way everyone knows like, hey, this is what this student needs each day.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they do have like the people that goes to those meetings are people that are actually involved in those cases, like what on the assignment about having people there like a special ed class teacher, but they also need a regular teacher and like that follow up because they do need to complement all that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does
so
it tell you how much time we have, Jocelyn?
It's not showing it yet, so I think we're good.
yeah, I
Oh,
think
okay.
I mean we're almost done though, but
Yeah, we're on the last one, right? So
yeah,
Yeah.
like the parent involvement, the zero reject and child find, so that the student may not be excluded from the school district or a program, and that the school district is obligated to find a way to pay and provide services needed by the students and their needs.
I feel that kind of ties into the least restrictive environment as well, and they all kind of tie in together, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, it does. It's for me, it's the same thing. Like, okay, so they should be there. They should not be excluded unless it's necessary, for them to learn. So yeah, for me, it does. They go hand on hand.
yeah, I feel like the zero reject child find that one is kind of like the way you guys said, it kind of ties into everything, like all of them. So like to me, the main idea is that like no one should be left behind regardless of disabilities or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I do know with child find, if a parent mentions something about child find, they're more likely to get that ball rolling quicker than if they wait for a teacher or someone else in the school system to say, hey, I think your child needs to be evaluated. So if the parent kind of starts that process, from what I've heard, it goes a little bit quicker because the parent is reaching out first.
Yes, I think so too. So I think that was it for this part, right? I know it did mention something about what was it called? Like you were just mentioning like about the parents and stuff. So,
Student participation, which kind
right.
of, I guess we talked about already, that goes into the who needs to be included. But to add to that, though, with as far as the student inside of the meetings itself, by the time they're 16, they have to have a transitional like conversation, like what do you want to do when you grow up? What are your plans for school? Just that way they have an idea of what their life might look like or what they want their life to look like outside of school once they're graduated. So that part has to, like, I know we start that process in the junior high when they turn 14, and then I think they do it again in high school as well, just to kind of get them thinking about the future, where they might be if they may end up being at a extended, schooling till they're 21, or depending on like if they want a job or if they can hold a job. So different stuff like that happens in those kind of conversations.
Yes. And also that the parents should be always in those IP meetings. One thing that I was trying to connect, because when I work in that classroom, like I said, whenever the teacher has those art, she never took the kids. I mean, the kids were never there. besides one kid that he was never in the classroom when they were having the art, because I was in the classroom with the kids when the teacher was having art. So when I was doing that assignment, I saw that that they cannot say the student participate, but that the parents can say if they want the child in the meeting or not. So that is one decision that it is meant to be made for them and from them if they want to.
Once they get to that transition age, they do have to have a portion in there where they are saying, hey, I would like to do X, Y, and Z. But other than that, I haven't really seen them typically in any of the meetings.
Okay. Alrighty. I don't know how long we have, but just if anybody else wants to add anything else, I think I'm done.
I think that's it. Honestly, covered everything. Everybody inputted. So